There we go. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I started out in the games industry in the web side, running large game websites. So I built the UGO network. I worked at Future Publishing, running all their game websites. So I built large web properties. Then for about 10 years, I was at a company called Planet Moon Studios, which is a local console and handheld developer. And about 2 years ago, I joined EA as part of Playfish in the social games business, and then moved into the mobile side of the business. And in my time at EA, I've worked on Sims Social, still one of our biggest social games ever. And most recently, I've been the GM of Simpsons Taped Out, which is our largest mobile hit. So what I want to talk to you guys today about is lessons learned about what retains users, what really matters in building a great service, what users really want counter to some of our more base instincts, and some lessons learned in running very large-scale mobile services. So when I think about this industry, I'm often struck by the fact that the mobile free-to-play business is less than 4 years old. So we've created an industry, and I think of it as an entirely new industry, as different from what we were doing in console games, one-time download games, as television is to film. It requires a completely different methodology of development, a different way of thinking about what you do for a living, and we've been doing it for about 3.5 years, a little over 3.5 years. So we've gotten obsessed at various points. If I follow everybody's conversations about what really makes a successful mobile service, what really makes a great social game, we've gotten obsessed with different metrics at different times. So I've tried to list kind of every single metric that people talk about. No, it's really about day 2, or no, the most important thing is your DARPU, and we heard this in the previous conversation. And the truth is, you can make any of these your most important metric. And thinking about what your service strategy is. What kind of game are we trying to build? What kind of service are we trying to build? And creating incentives for your team and for yourself and for your players that drive towards that most important metric is kind of the first and most foremost job in designing a service these days. Rather than thinking about it as we want to be great at everything, what are we really going to pursue? And I am now very enchanted with the idea that the most important metric to me is day 180 retention. This is not uncontroversial. People will disagree with me. I want to make my case. The reason I think this is based on what we've seen with a couple of our games at EA, and I'm going to walk through some metrics of those. So on Simpsons Taped Out, it is a game that we've built hand in hand with the folks at Gracie Film, and those are the folks who make the show, The Simpsons. And we work on a day-to-day basis with them very closely. And in working with them, we have learned what are the core values of The Simpsons, what are the core values of Gracie, and this game has been built based on those core values. So 4 core values are creative leads business. You don't do something because it's a good business decision, you do it because it's the best creative decision. Treat everyone the same. So they say we treat all of our children the same, right? They don't say, oh, you're the very special fans, you're the ones who really count. Treat everybody the same. Make it great or simply don't do it, and always remain true to the show. So now if you're a PM, product manager, working on The Simpsons, and you hear these are the rules that you must follow, you probably immediately go, oh God, this is terrible, right? Because when you hear creative leads business, you're probably thinking, okay, this means we're gonna have to give stuff away a lot. We're gonna probably not do things that are too squeezy or too pinchy. Treat everybody the same means no visible testing, and this is true of The Simpsons Taped Out. There is no visible A/B testing going on. We treat everybody the same. You take a really long time. Make it great or don't do it. Don't try something out real quickly. Just throw it out there, see what happens. So we really take a long time to do stuff. Remain true to the show. Work with people you can't control, right? So you're a PM, you've got an idea of what's going to maximize retention, what's going to maximize DARPU, right? And you want to make the change. Well, you can't just make that change. You are actually working with the writers of the show, and you have to do something that is tied into the show. That's very challenging. You can't do that. So this seems like, from a PM perspective, from where we were a year ago in our mindset when looking at that long list of KPIs, like we're screwed, right? We just can't make a great service following these rules. So what actually happened? Well, so first off, the DAU consistently has grown on this game. The green, it's sort of hard to read in this projection, is once we launched on Android. But it's grown and grown over time. With our first update of Treehouse of Horror, hit #1 grossing, and we have remained #1 grossing from time to time. We are top 5 grossing global game. We remain in the top 5 in most territories. And some metrics of just how people have engaged with this game. Here's just from the last quarter. Over 1 billion quests completed last quarter, about 6 billion minutes played across all of our players, and hundreds of billions coins spent a month. In a quarter, I think we do about 1 quadrillion of the coins are spent. So people are extremely engaged with this game that's been built without any visible A/B testing, has been built on a very long lead time without lots of experimentation. It was very counterintuitive to us. So when I'm asked, as I often am internally, what was the secret sauce here? What is the big difference maker? This is what I end up concluding. All right, so this is the day 2 and day 3. Sorry, at EA, for some reason we've decided that what everybody else calls D1 retention, we'll call D2. Sorry. But day 2 retention chart, day 3 retention chart. So the orange line is a different EA game, and it has better day 2 and day 3 retention than Simpsons Taped Out. The red line, these are all builders. So these are all similar gameplay patterns. The red line is another builder, and that red line game actually has the best DARPU of these 3 games. The orange line, what we call Builder 1, has the best D2 through day 5 retention. The red line has the best ARPS. And even with the Simpsons brand, that orange line actually has as many installs, or had as many installs at launch, as the Simpsons. So it's not like this is all a function of the Simpsons being such a big brand. We got so many installs that everything's different. Where it really changes is when you plot out to day 90. So at day 90, Simpsons is 2x the retention of our nearest and best builder game. People just keep coming back to the game, and over and over and over again. We think that is because we have led with quality. We think that is because we have not, in fact, aggressively pinched everybody. We haven't tested them into oblivion. We think that that is because we have done what Gracie has said are the values that are most core to The Simpsons. And when you think about it, let's go back to what my premise was. What are we doing? We are reinventing our industry, or inventing even a new industry, as different as television was to film. Well, we have partnered with people who have built the longest running scripted television series of all time. They know a thing or two about how to keep people coming back day after day after day, following their rules, which really are aggressively don't get in people's face with too much commercialization, don't squeeze them. We've managed to keep players playing for a very long time. The result when you look at these, even though this game still has better ARPS, this game still has better DARPU, the result over the trend line here is the TSTO is a top 5 global hit. The orange line that had its better day 2 retention, and we often obsess about day 2 retention, is a solid hit for us. And the red line is left in the dust. It's just not a very successful title. So I think the creative leads business rule, the rule #1, turns out to be the most important and powerful factor in what's made The Simpsons the hit it is. So what does that actually look like? So here's some stuff that's just crazy when talking about the free-to-play game space. We have a content plan that is 12 months in advance, right? So we know what we're going to build a year from now because we are tied to a show. We are working on content 6 months ahead. That is the way that we can ensure quality. So we have people actually working on stuff that you're not going to see for a long time because they are making sure they're going back and forth with the creators of the show to make sure it is great Simpsons quality. We take multiple passes back and forth on the script to make sure it's perfect with the writers of the show. We have very few sales, extremely muted merchandising. We do it, and when we do it, we're very explicit about it. We're not shy about it. We're not pretending we're not selling you. We're not like pretending we're not selling you something. It's very clear that it's something being sold, but we don't make it the forefront of the game. The writers and the designers are co-developing the show and the game, and our kind of main rule is that this is fun-driven design, not data-driven design. Now, when I say that, I don't want to come across like a Luddite. I'm not saying data-driven is a bad idea. I'm not saying it's, hey, everybody, let's party like it's 2004. Data is, of course, still incredibly critical to what we are building. But we don't say, hey, you know what sold yesterday? An umbrella is sold, so tomorrow let's create a red umbrella and an orange umbrella and a green umbrella and a blue umbrella, right? Many of us who built these games have gotten caught in that trap, right? Chase the data down the rabbit hole to try to maximize revenue. And this game has been built aggressively not in that spirit, and it has served us extremely well. And that's sort of my key point. The game is Simpsons quality, and the players have rewarded us by coming back. So I'll give you another example from EA, the Sims FreePlay. So Sims FreePlay has a very long lead update strategy. When we do updates for the game, they are major, not incremental, and they introduce really large new chunks of gameplay, like being able to have children or being able to have pets, right? What they don't do is they don't complexify the core game experience. So they are large enhancements of what the core game experience is, and when the player knows that core game experience, they can still do it if they don't suddenly have to learn a whole new game, which is a big difference from what we've done in some other games. The effect of that, which I find surprising. Maybe some of you have seen a game with this kind of chart, but here's the retention chart for Sims FreePlay over, I think, 18 months. It has had absolutely, over time, no dip to retention from new installs, no dip in D7, no dip in D14. All cohorts remain almost exactly identical because the game remains the same core game, it just has more stuff added onto it. Now the effect of that, now maybe you've all seen charts like this, we have not at EA. Usually it looks like you get people who come into the early days because they're really excited about this particular game, and then you're slowly getting organics or people who are less excited, and your retention charts start going down and getting worse over time. This has remained exactly identical over time, and the impact of that is that the game has remained relevant to all cohorts, and people have continued to stack on. I'll show you what that looks like in DAU. The power of having that, with people continuing to stay in and the game remaining as relevant to a new person who starts the game 18 months after the game first came out as it was to a person who started on day one, is that we've been able to build a really large community that is relevant to everybody who comes into the game. So about a year ago, the team on the game took over the Facebook page. It was done by a central group. They took over the Facebook page and they said, you know what, we want to start talking directly to the consumers. And they day by day grew their Facebook page to the point where now there's 1.2 million likes on Facebook for the game, starting from 10,000 likes. And everybody on the game team interacts with the players of the game on a daily and regular basis. That is organic. So that is a drive-through, but now, because we're EA, we have a large network that we can drive organically through, right? So, yes, we're not. There was, I think, an early like acquisition campaign, but this is almost entirely organic through the game, getting people to come in and do it. The question was that organic or paid, by the way? So this is almost entirely organic. So because the team is regularly engaging with these players, and as I said, the game remains completely relevant to those players over time, and the impact is, unlike almost any other game we've got, the game has actually just consistently grown in DAU over 18 months, which is just goofballs as far as we're concerned. We haven't seen that happen before. It's just because people don't leave the game, because of that long-term retention, we are able to build a bigger and bigger game. So those are my arguments that day 180 retention turns out to be probably the most powerful thing in this business. When I think about it from the perspective of the way we were talking about building these games, maybe even just a year ago, right? We talked about the fact that there'll be spenders and non-spenders, right? And you have to figure out how to cut the wheat from the chaff and figure out, okay, you got the, I've even heard people talk about the non-spenders as freeloaders, right? Has everybody heard that word used, right? As an industry, we've actually talked about people who are playing our games as freeloaders, right? And I think about what we're building as an industry, and I think about it like, let's say, a corner store, right? Now, when I lived in Brooklyn, there were a couple corner stores. There's corner stores everywhere in New York. One of the corner stores, you'd walk in and you'd browse, and if you were there for about a minute, the guy behind the counter would say, "You going to buy something?" Right? You're like, well, I don't know. And like, you go, hey, what are you doing? Right? And eventually you just be like, okay, I'm not coming back to that corner store, right? Because this is not going to happen. If you are building a long-term service, when you're thinking about what is your engagement with this customer, not today, not tomorrow, what's your engagement going to be like with them 6 months from now? and you're not trying to chase them away. Hey, make a decision, spend or not. You are able to build for yourself a massive annuity, right? A game that will live for years and years, and that should be the measure by which we judge ourselves. All right, so what are some lessons that we've learned in building these services at EA? These are some helpful roadmaps. So building a long-term engagement with players, I find one of the most important rules is to think about how you're going to listen to what the players are telling you and how you're going to respond to what the players are telling you. So when doing that, this is one of my favorite stories from the last several years. So in the 2012 election, Michelle Obama was campaigning down in North Carolina. And a reporter asked some people, what do you think about Michelle Obama? Was going around town, what do you think about Michelle Obama? And a woman said, I don't like her. She doesn't look like a first lady. Now, you can imagine the controversy that this spawned. A white woman in North Carolina says, I don't think Michelle Obama looks like a first lady. What the hell is she talking about? What's that about? A giant controversy kicked off, news stories everywhere. So some reporter went and tracked down this woman and said, what did you mean that Michelle Obama doesn't look like a first lady? Does anybody know? Any guesses? Come on, you can talk, raise your hand. Anybody? Too tall? Too tall is a good guess. Any others? Too muscular. Michelle Obama's got too many muscles and she shows them off. Now, why do I tell you that? I believe very deep down in my heart that if you surveyed 150,000 Americans, 149,999 of them would say one of their favorite things about Michelle Obama is those magnificent guns of hers, right? Like, this is an awesome aspect of Michelle Obama. Everybody loves this about Michelle Obama. It's on the cover of every magazine. So they managed to find the one knucklehead in America who says, I don't like that, right? And it caused this enormous controversy. My point is, you must, when building one of these services, if you are going to have a long-term engagement with your customers, build for yourself systems to listen to what they're saying and to interact with them. You have to know what is meaningful to the customers, but you actually then also have to know what actually matters and what they tell you. The thing that is best about your game, when you're starting to talk to millions of people a day, will be something that somebody's mad about, right? There's somebody is going to say, I hate about your game the fact that it is fun, right? They'll put it in different words, but they actually will hate your core game loop that everybody else loves. So you have to use data to figure out what actually matters and what they're telling you. Another lesson learned in our building long-term engagement, very small mistakes can be unbelievably costly and very hard to recover from. So this is the retention chart for Simpsons Taped Out. So right here, you can see we had this big drop in D2, and you see that it impacted the game all the way down to day 90 retention. This is because we introduced 6 seconds of additional load time into the game, right? And this impacted us for over a week, and we lost, let's say hundreds of thousands of players who were never going to come back. 6 seconds of additional load time. So when you're thinking about prioritizing on your KPIs retention, it has impacts across every system. Well, we're going to build a new system. What effect might it have on load time, for instance? Because that might harm our ability to continue to interact with our players. Here's another one. We had a data center that had an outage for a day. Right? We had a huge impact on our users, and then it didn't actually recover for days for reasons that are still mystical to us. For some reason, it had an organic impact where people on the next day who installed somehow knew that the day before we'd had an outage. Who knows how they knew? But it had a long-term impact. So these small things have huge impacts. Here's another one. As I said on the slide about Michelle Obama, it is vital to have a sense, to be able to quantify what your service is, how well your people like it, what their issues are. We have a system where we know everything anybody's complaining about. We're tracking what they're complaining about, why, et cetera, on any given daily basis. That giant slide there, that's the data center out, right? Those are all the people calling us to say, hey, the data center out. It's critical to build a system like this. However you can do it, through Zendesk, through whatever hacky system you can do. But be aware that you can't steer entirely by this list. So here is a tiny little uplift in complaints, right? So this is us introducing a new feature where our max level players would be able to get additional kind of epic levels while they waited for the next level to come out. We introduced a bug called the Harp of Death, in which just those players couldn't play the game anymore. So let me repeat that. our max level players, the people who'd been with us for 6 to 9 months, suddenly couldn't play the game anymore, right? So these people were tweeting at us, yelling at us, threatening to never come back. These people would spend money in the game, et cetera. So there weren't that many of them, so it was a tiny little uplift in the complaints. But they had a very loud result. The point here is when you're thinking about features, when you think about features in the game, don't just think about what impact they'll have on revenue. Think about who is the audience member who they might impact if things go wrong. A feature that will impact your most engaged, most monetizing customers better be looked at with extreme, extreme caution, because if it goes wrong, it can really hurt you. So finally, and this is a rule that's near and dear to my heart. Was that 1 minute? Or okay. A rule that's near and dear to my heart. Get your whole team involved. So this chart is economic growth between democracies and dictatorships. You can see one grows bigger. What do you think is the one that grows fastest? A dictatorship or a democracy? Dictatorship, right? Dictatorships grow faster. By the way, afterwards, if you want to catch me, I can tell you a funny story about that. No, it's democracies. Democracies have the bigger growth by a lot. And it turns out the reason why is that if you put a gun to somebody's head and say, be innovative right now or I'll kill you and your whole family, they don't do a very good job of it. This is a shocking fact. So something that everybody who is interested in making a great team happen should do is watch this video, RSA Animate, Dan Pink. You can just Google it, Dan Pink Drive, RSA Animate. And it's about what actually motivates us. And Dan Pink says what motivates us most is autonomy, being able to be in control of what we do on a daily basis, mastery, knowing that I could get really great at this, right? And purpose. Why am I doing this, right? And when you think about purpose for your game team, seriously, you are working with people who are wondering what is going to be the first line on my obituary. You're working with people who are thinking, will anybody remember me when I'm gone? How is your work reaching those folks, right? Well, by getting them involved in what you're building, by sharing data, by being clear to your whole team, what is it we're trying to build together, you can unlock incredible potential. The best story ever on this, am I out of time, or Scott, can I go on? Okay. The best story ever on this is Jack Welch, the head of GE, was once in a factory, and a 45-year-old appliance worker who'd been there for 25 years came up to him and said, I just discovered recently that the most important thing to the company is that we build more of those, and I've been building more of these, and if you just told me, I could have told you how to really increase efficiency over here. For 25 years, you paid for my hands, and you could have had my brain for free if you just told me what you need. So telling your team what matters can unlock incredible potential. When your team knows the data, they can give you their brains, their delicious brains. So in conclusion, steering by short-term measures will not generate long-term success. Thinking that DARPU and D2 is the most important thing doesn't work. The most powerful services create long-term quality engagements with their players. Quality really matters. Get your whole team involved. Thank you.
You're too muscular.
So I have, I think, 8 minutes for questions. Is that right?
Actually, our next speaker is just canceled, so you can take as long as you like.
I wouldn't have rushed that last slide. All right.
She joined the company and now can't speak. I can't say what company, but it rhymes with Facebook.
All right. Are there any questions for me about any of that? Yes. Yes. This one? Yeah. Yes. Was there a question about the slide? Or, you just wanted to? Yeah. Someone has a question.
I don't mean to be a jerk with this question.
Please be a jerk.
I have heard rumors from other people that it takes about $50,000 a day in marketing to stay on the top free charts. Is that true?
The top free charts?
Yeah, like Simpsons and Clash for Clans spend.
So we aren't in the top free charts. It is monstrously expensive to hit the top 5 of the top free charts. You're absolutely right. No, that is not a rumor. That is 100% true. Now, to be in the top 5 free, right, it is possible, and I have no data on this, right? So this is speculation of somebody who's in the industry with them. I think King has built an incredible viral machine They sit in those charts. I know that they're acquiring like crazy, but I think they also get a ton of installs through sheer organic. But the most important way to get to the top free and not stay there is the editorial placement, right? So if you get editorial placement, you can shoot up. You get editor's choice, it's incredibly powerful. So being friends with the folks at Apple really matters, right? And having a great game. That's what they judge you on, is quality. So you can have the best metrics, the best analytics, a whiz-bang MBA PM, but if you do not have fun, you have nothing, right? You will not get the editorial placement. People won't stick around to play it, and you won't be able to get the installs. Did that answer your question, or was it just a tirade? Yeah. Okay, good. Good. Other questions?
So how are you, a title like your title is obviously mature, so to speak, in the marketplace. Are you merely managing churn through the community, or is there a marketing layer to continue to fill a funnel as you're dealing with balance of your D180, right?
Right.
Short term, long term, how does marketing play a role in that whole acquisition?
Right. So the question is, given that these titles are mature, is there a marketing apparatus to keep topping the funnel, essentially, to get new people in? And the answer is absolutely yes. We use every channel available to us. We use Facebook posts on all of our games. We talk to the consumer through the actual app store as well. We update the what's new, and we talk to them wherever we can in forums. We do cross promotion. The EA network itself of games is quite vast, right? We have hundreds of games on the App Store, and we have inventory on those games that we drive players to. So yes, we are very actively driving installs on our biggest titles at all times to top out the funnel.
What are some of the top tactics from a marketing standpoint to keep that going? That you can speak to?
What are the top strategies from a marketing perspective to keep the funnel going? Yeah, actually, I can speak to that. It's not doing the same damn thing over and over again, right? So it is not creating a playbook and saying, okay, and so this month we will try, write 10 words. They'll be, come play the game now and do this. It's having really engaged, smart marketing folks who are seeing what's working and aware that there's going to be a point where it stops working, and having good plans to get something new that's going to work, right? So you have to be constantly really engaging on what the performance is of every single one of those many campaigns you're doing. Well, how many installs did we get through Facebook this month? How many, et cetera? How well is the network going? How are these banners in our network performing? These banners have stopped performing. Let's get new banners. I mean, it is a major job for a lot of people.
Is it predominantly just on a mobile interface, or are you doing offline, other traditional marketing?
Our primary method is through mobile, including Facebook mobile client now, which is very powerful for driving installs. Is that next question? Other questions? Oh, that's one.
Hi, I have a question about EA's kind of strategy. Maybe a bit rude, so I apologize in advance, and maybe I'm misquoting some of the data, but I remember looking at the App Annie index for top grossing, and I look at EA and they have 98 games, but they're still lower than Glue Mobile, which has 2 titles. Is there something, is it strategically that you kind of do volume rather than increase monetization per title? I'm just curious about that.
You aren't being rude at all. It's a great question. We've actually talked about this very publicly. So in the one-time download market, we released a lot of games. In the free-to-play market that is now clearly dominant, that strategy is not hugely effective. We have massively reduced the number of games we're releasing every year and focusing on fewer, bigger, better games of higher quality that we believe can have very long-term engagement with our customers. Right? Yeah, so you're seeing the legacy of the transition, but we actually have more titles in the top 25 than pretty much anybody else, right? We've done very well in that regard. I think you might not have been counting PopCap, right? So when you start thinking about Jewel Blitz, you're going to see Plants vs. Zombies 2 soon, right? We have quite a few games that have successfully bridged the gap, but you're absolutely right that when you get one Candy Crush Saga, it can eclipse the entire rest of the universe, and that's just the nature of this new business that we're in. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.